In this session, we shall see how in Sonnet 106 Shakespeare has used different figures of speech. Okay, and we shall focus mainly on three figures of speech in Sonnet 106. They are metaphor, personification, and alliteration. Okay, as discussed previously, metaphor is a figure of speech where there is direct one on one comparison between two people, two objects, or object and a person, right? Then we have alliteration where there is repetition of the sound of a consonant in a particular line. Okay, there will be repetitive sound of a consonant in the same line, either minimum 2 times, maximum it may go up to 5 to 6 times in a line. So when you find that repetition of the consonant in the line of a poem, that you term as alliteration. So another figure of speech which is used is personification. If you just split the word person, personification. Okay, we also use it in day to day context, right? Personified form. Okay, so we say, for example, some virtues, right? So he or she is the personified form of truth. Okay, what does it mean? The person is so truthful, it's like the example for the entire attribute called truth itself. Okay, so that is called personification, where inanimate lifeless objects, attributes, and also things are compared, are are given lifelike qualities like human beings. Okay, for example, you see that how in many of the Shakespearean sonnets he personifies time, where time is used not just as an attribute, it is used as a personality. Okay, it is used as a human being, it is used as a personified form. It is used, time is used as a person in many of Shakespearean poems, sonnets especially, wherein he is using time as a person uh, who has this immense power to destroy things as it passes by. Okay, so this is how personification is used predominantly in Shakespeare's poetry, particularly his sonnets. Okay, here also let us look at the lines from Sonnet 106, where we can figure out so many similar figures of speech. At the very first line, if you look at, it begins with, when in the chronicle of wasted time. Okay, the chronicle of wasted time. What does wasted time mean? The time which has just passed by, which has gone by without serving any purpose. Okay, so when we say wasting something, it's not the inanimate lifeless things can waste something. When you see the chronicle, reference to chronicle, that is wasted by time. So time again here is personified, of having a human attribute of doing something. And what has time done here? It has wasted itself. It has wasted itself, okay, which is being registered and recorded in the form of chronicles, right? So look at the second line. I see descriptions of the fairest wits. Third line, and beauty making beautiful old rhyme. What kind of figures of speech you can locate in the third line of the first stanza in Sonnet 106? You can actually figure out two different figures of speech in the same line. The first figure of speech is alliteration. Look at the line once again. And beauty making beautiful old rhyme. So there is repetition of the sound of consonant sound of B. Okay, beauty and beautiful. So twice the same consonant sound is repeated in the line. So it could be alliteration. And the second figure of speech that you can figure out in this line is personification. Why is it so? Here, the attribute called the quality called beauty, the attribute called beauty is personified, as if beauty is performing a task. What is the task beauty is performing? It is making beautiful old rhyme. Okay, and the attribute of a person called beauty, that person's beauty is doing some task here, like human beings, like having human qualities. What is the task the beauty is imagined to be performing here? Making beautiful old rhyme. Okay, so the beauty is being responsible for the composition of the old rhymes, the old poems. Rhymes and rhythms here means the old poems. So beauty is responsible, it is actually inspiring for the composition of these beautiful old poems. Okay, in praise, and what does it personify? And whom does it personify? The beauty of uh, praise of ladies dead and lovely knights. Okay, here also you can find these two words, ladies and lovely. So repetition of the same consonant sound of the letter L, lovely and ladies, right? So that could also be alliteration. Okay, then the next line you have, then in the blazon of sweet beauty's best. Okay, sweet beauty's best. Again you find alliteration, beauty and best. Repetition of the consonant sound of the letter B. Okay, so you also have metaphor here. Okay, in the blazon of sweet beauty's best. So there is this thing called blazon, which is directly compared to sweet beauty's attribute. Okay, so in the blazon of sweet beauty's best, so you have two comparisons, two figures of speech here. One is metaphor, one is alliteration. Okay, in the next line, it's very interesting that you just do not find the repetition of a letter or a sound, but you find the repetition of one single word, a preposition here. Okay, so look at the next line, of hand, of foot, of lip, of eye, of brow. Okay, so 1 2 3 4 5, you find that this preposition, the word of, is repeated 5 times in the same line. Okay, which adds on to the typical rhythmical and rhyming effect in a poem. Okay, so that adds on to the effectiveness of Shakespearean's style of writing here, composing poetry. Okay, so that could also directly be taken as alliteration. There is the repetition of the same sound of the same word of here in the entire line 5 times. Okay, then you see the next line, you find very interesting personification in the next line. I see their antique pen would have expressed. Okay, what is a pen? What can a pen do? Can it get up and write something on its own? Is it a living thing? No, pen is an object, right? We all know pen is an object, while here you see that Shakespeare is using pen as having life of its own. He is using pen as a kind of person, a person who is doing something here, is involved in some action, is committing some act. Okay, and what is the act pen is performing? It is performing the act of expressing the beauty of a beauty's foot, hand, lip, eye, and brow, as stated in the previous line. Okay, so you find here that the object, the inanimate lifeless object called pen, is given lifelike quality of its own, as if it is getting up from a pen stand or a table and is set out to record a lady's beauty. Okay, and what is it recording? It is recording the beauty of a lady's beautiful eyebrow, beautiful hand, beautiful lip. Okay, and beautiful foot. Okay, and beautiful eye. Okay, this is exactly what is the task is performed by the pen, which is personified here. Okay, it is acting like a person, it is acting like a human being here. Okay, so that is, it is being personified. So the figure of speech used here is personification. Okay, so you have the next line. There also you find the traces of alliteration. It says, so all their praises are but prophecies. The repetition of the letter, the consonant sound of the letter P, praises and prophecies. So that could also be alliteration, and it is also a metaphor. Why? Because the praises are directly compared to prophecies here. Okay, so the easiest way of recognizing a metaphor is by locating the usage of the comparative words which come under simile, like and as. Okay, if you can convert this line into the other figure of speech called simile, that means it can also be a metaphor. Okay, so if you convert it into simile, it becomes all their praises are but prophecies. If you convert it into simile, it becomes all their praises are like prophecies. Okay, so it can be termed converted into simile. So it can also become metaphor. So now you have both the figures of speech, alliteration and metaphor, in the same line. Okay, then you have the next line, of this our time all you prefiguring. Okay, and for they looked but with divining eyes. This could also be personification, wherein the attribute of being divine is attributed in turn to someone's eyes. Okay, then they had not skill enough your worth to sing. Okay, so again it is a personification here. So who did not have enough worth to sing? These chronicles in which the beauties of all these beautiful ancient ladies and lords is recorded. Okay, so these chronicles do not have the ability to sing the worth um, of the ladies and lords. So here again, chronicle overall is a kind of the a bigger personification which is followed in the entire sonnet. Okay, because all these recordings about beautiful ladies and lords, it is being done in chronicles, right? So when the poet denies that chronicles were not able to record the true worth of all these ladies and lords, What does it tell you? The chronicle, the lifeless inanimate object called chronicle or a document in simpler words in the modern English, it means that the chronicle is not able to record the beauty of all these bygone ladies and lords. So that is a kind of extended personification which is available in the entire sonnet, okay, which is drawn across the entire sonnet, okay. And that is exactly what the last two lines, they convey the theme of the sonnet. Have eyes to wonder but lack tongues to praise, okay. So this cannot be the direct personification. They could come under another kind of figure of speech called metonym, where the parts of something is expressed to represent the entire thing. For example, eyes are part of a person's body. They could in turn be used to represent the entire person. So that figure of speech is called metonym. Of course, you are not expected to study it under the current poem. Let us have a look at the other figures of speech as and when the time demands.